All right, let's jump right in. Today we are diving deep into the world of Charlemagne and the Carolingian Renaissance.
We are talking about a time when Europe was, well, let's just say it was still figuring things out after the fall of Rome.
And knowledge, I mean, real scholarship, that was power.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to our subject, Theodulf of Orléans.
Ah, Theodulf, a fascinating figure. When you think about it, this is a guy who embodies that whole idea of knowledge as power.
Oh, how
Well,
so?
just imagine for a second, fleeing a Moorish invasion in 8th century Spain, right?
Okay, I'm picturing it not a fun time.
No, not at all. And then, and this is the kicker, ending up as, get this, the right-hand man to Charlemagne himself.
Whoa, talk about a story. From refugee to right-hand man? That's incredible.
It really is. And it tells you something about Charlemagne, too, right? I mean, this wasn't just a ruler interested in conquering.
You're saying he was trying to build something new, something more.
Exactly. Reviving learning, fostering a culture of scholarship. Charlemagne knew that a strong empire, a lasting empire, needed a strong intellectual foundation.
And Theodulf, with his education, his background, he was essential to that.
Absolutely. He was Charlemagne's, you could say, scholarly right-hand man.
So he goes from escaping an invasion to being right in the thick of building a new era of learning. But was he all talk? I mean, did he actually contribute?
Oh, he was far from a figurehead.
Yeah.
Theodulf was instrumental in Charlemagne's mission to reform the church. For example, he threw himself into translating sacred texts.
Massive undertaking.
It was. And he insisted on going back to the original Greek and Hebrew to ensure accuracy.
I can only imagine how much work went into that. Why was accuracy so important back then?
Well, you see, back then, even a small translation error, even something seemingly insignificant, could have huge theological consequences.
So every word, every phrase, it all mattered. He sounds like a bit of a perfectionist.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
But his dedication to getting it right speaks volumes about his character, wouldn't you say?
It really does. It also highlights just how important preserving knowledge and preserving it accurately was in that era.
Exactly. It was a vital task.
So we've got this dedicated scholar meticulously translating texts. It makes you wonder, what else did this guy get up to? What other projects did this scholar take on? So we've got this dedicated scholar meticulously translating texts. It makes you wonder, did he ever create anything original himself?
Oh, absolutely. Theodulf's talents, they went way beyond just translating.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, for starters, he wrote poetry.
Okay.
Hymns, too.
Wow.
And, get this, he even wrote guidelines for priests.
Guidelines for priests. What? On how to be a priest.
Exactly. How to live, how to conduct themselves, the whole bit. They're called capitularies, these guidelines. Basically decrees, issued to clarify church teachings and practices.
Okay, so like a how-to manual for holiness.
Yeah, you could say that. And they're fascinating, these capitularies. Like in one of them, Theodulf, he stresses how important manual labor is for priests. He really believed that it wasn't enough to be a man of the mind. He thought priests should work with their hands too.
Interesting. So a bit of that idle hands thinking there.
Exactly. He saw real value in both physical and intellectual pursuit.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then in another capitulary, he tackles moral conduct. Comes down hard against adultery, no question.
So work hard, be good.
Got it. I'm sensing a theme here, Aligns perfectly with what we know about Charlemagne's vision, right? I mean, this idea of a morally strong, intellectually vibrant society.
Right, right.
But you mentioned something earlier about Theodulf potentially writing, like one of the most important art history documents of the Middle Ages.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about the Liber Carolini. This treatise, it tackles like this really thorny issue of religious images, specifically their use in churches.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. I mean, that sounds like a topic that could still spark some serious debate even today. So set the scene for us. Why were images such a hot-button issue back then? Okay, so imagine, right, a world where images are like your main way of connecting with stories, with faith itself.
Okay, I'm with you.
But then there's this underlying tension. Like, are you venerating the image itself or what it represents?
Ah, I see.
And that right there, that's the debate we're talking about. Iconoclasm. It had been raging for centuries in the Eastern Church.
So kind of like mistaking the map for the destination itself.
Exactly. And Theodulf, he wades right into this theological minefield, right into it with the Liber Carolini.
He didn't shy away from controversy, did he?
Not at all. So he defends the use of images in churches, right?
Okay.
But, and this is a big but, he's very clear, very explicit that they shouldn't be worshipped. His argument was that images, they can be, these powerful tools for teaching, for inspiring the faithful, but only if people remember their representations, of something much greater.
That's a really nuanced stance, especially for that time. It takes guts to step into a debate like that.
Oh, absolutely. And it gets even more complicated. You see, there was this faulty translation of a church council's decree going around.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. And this translation, it made it sound like even the Pope endorsed image worship.
Oh, talk about adding fuel to the fire. So what did Theodulf do?
He spoke up.
He did.
He did. Pointed out the translation error. Argued against it, even though it meant disagreeing with Charlemagne himself.
Wow. That took some serious courage.
It did.
I mean, to risk his position, his reputation, everything, to stand up for what he believed in, that's incredible.
It really is. Theodulf's actions, they speak volumes about his character, this unwavering commitment to truth, to accuracy. And I think it's a powerful reminder for us today that even when it's tough, we have to speak up for what we believe is right.
It's amazing how one person, even way back then, over 1,000 years ago,
Yeah.
could have such an impact. Speaking of impact, I read something about Theodulf having his own private chapel. We're talking private chapel, not just going to the closest church.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, did his passion for knowledge, for art, did that extend to his personal life? What do we know about this chapel?
Well, the chapel at Germany des Prés, it wasn't just any chapel. It gives us this fascinating glimpse into Theodulf's personality. It was a modest structure, not a huge cathedral or anything, but, and this is interesting, it had these echoes of Charlemagne's palace at Aachen.
Hold on. So even in his private life, Theodulf's finding ways to pay homage to his patron. That's like finding out your history professor collects those little action figures, the historical ones.
Right. It makes you see him in a whole different light. But what makes the chapel really special is, well, it's the art. It's got one of the very few surviving examples of Carolingian-era mosaic.
Wow, a mosaic. We're not talking like a casual arts and crafts project here. This is the real deal. What's the subject?
The central scene, it depicts the Ark of the Covenant.
Wait a minute. The Ark of the Covenant. As in the same Ark of the Covenant that Theodulf uses, as an example, in the Libri Carolini. The one he uses when he's defending the use of images in churches.
With golden cherubim on top and all that.
That's the one. It wasn't just some random decoration. It was a statement.
It's like he was saying, see, even God was cool with a little religious imagery.
Exactly. And, get this, while only the mosaic remains today, we know from the records that the chapel was also covered in frescoes.
Frescoes too. Wow, what did they show?
Scenes from the Bible, the 7 liberal arts, even classical literature.
A veritable feast for the eyes and the mind. This guy, Theodulf, he truly lived and breathed learning. So as we, wrap up this deep dive here, what can we, in the 21st century, what can we really take away from a scholar who lived over 1,200 years ago? I think Theodulf's story, it reminds us that intellectual curiosity, a real dedication to truth, and the courage to stand up for what you believe in, those are timeless values.
They really are.
And in our age, right, with information overload, instant opinions everywhere you look, it's so easy to just get swept away by whatever's, trending. To just accept what we see without questioning it.
It's true. It's like we're drowning in information sometimes.
Exactly. And Theodulf, his dedication to real scholarship, to going back to those original sources, it's a powerful reminder that we need to be critical thinkers. We need to question what we see and hear to seek out different perspectives.
He also reminds us that it's okay to disagree, even with people in power, as long as we do it respectfully and with good reason. Theodulf's story is a powerful reminder that what we do, what we stand for, it can echo through the ages. He went from fleeing an invasion to shaping the intellectual landscape of an empire. It makes you think, what will our legacy be? What will future deep dives uncover about us? That's something to think about, isn't it?